Today, an indictment was unsealed, charging Donald J. Trump with conspiring to defraud the United States, conspiring to disenfranchise voters, and conspiring and attempting to obstruct an official proceeding.
But if the allegations made by the Justice Department in this indictment are proven, if the former president did what he is accused of, history is not going to ask, wow, how did America get to the point where they indicted a former president? History instead is going to ask, how did America get to the point where such a person could be elected to the presidency of the United States?
Fox News were shaping up to foot the bill for another Dominion Christmas party.
Which everybody that knows Donald Trump and has read his truths know, he still believes the election was stolen. And he has good cause to believe so.
They lead off with saying the president lied about election fraud and knew there was no fraud. How do they know that he knew that there was no fraud? And if this goes to trial, are we going to now have to go back and find fraud in the 2020 election? Is this now what we're going to go relitigate? Does this open up the entire 2020 election?
MSNBC host Rachel Maddow used her time on air to offer some much-needed context on the matter. A look ahead as future Americans wonder, how on earth did a quad-indicted, thrice-married, morally bankrupt sycophant found liable of sexual assault ever get elected in the first place?
I just want to note, for the record, that when you at home have a chance to read this thing, and you should, just to page through it when you have a quiet moment. Trust me, you have read things longer than 45 pages. This is double-spaced. You'll get through it. If you have a quiet moment to read this, and I hope you do, if you are like me, I think the thing that will jump out at you is the violence. Not descriptions of violence on January 6th, but the way Trump and his alleged co-conspirators talked about how violence was going to be part of this. How that was factored in to this alleged conspiracy in a way that these folks seem to expect. They're not charged with riot. They're not charged with sedition. They are charged with exploiting the disturbance that they apparently, allegedly, intentionally caused. They knew to count on violence. They factored it into their planning. That comes out in the indictment in a way that will keep you up. But if the allegations made by the Justice Department in this indictment are proven, if the former president did what he is accused of, history is going to ask a different question of this time than what we might have otherwise been expecting. If the allegations in this indictment are proven beyond a reasonable doubt and a jury convicts him of these crimes, history is not going to ask, wow, how did America get to the point where they indicted a former president? History instead is going to ask, how did America get to the point where such a person could be elected to the presidency of the United States, where actions such as these could be carried out from the Oval Office, directed by a person who was elected president by the American people, along with his advisors?
As expected in the wake of Tuesday's bombshell announcement from Jack Smith, there were bound to be hot takes.
They are as grave offenses as an incumbent president could commit against the United States, with the possible exception of treason. Donald Trump, though, has decided to inflict this ordeal on the nation on any day since January 6th. He could have avoided and prevented this indictment today. He chose not to. And so the nation's in for a spectacle that the former president wanted. That means for the next year and a half, the former president will be on trial for criminal offenses against the United States, while he's campaigning for the presidency as the presumptive Republican nominee for the American presidency.
Lukewarm takes.
House attorneys, campaign staffers,
but
state
what was not
legislators
true?
that you just mentioned there, in the courts.
Right. What was not true? That there were states where ballots were sent out without people asking for them, where there were changes in verification, where there were instances where ballots were not being supervised at drop-off places. Discussion
But
like
it
we're
matters
just
if
having.
those things actually occurred or not, John.
Not under the First
But
Amendment.
it matters if those things
No.
actually occurred, because
Not at all, because under the First
it does matter
Amendment.
if there was actually fraud.
No, the First Amendment allows.
But John, let me stop you there, because
Yeah.
if he's saying that there was fraud, the First Amendment doesn't allow the President of the United States to go and claim there was fraud when he was told there was not fraud, and then try to subvert the election by overturning legitimate electors. I mean, it says it right here in the actual indictment.
And QAnon-fueled conspiratorial takes that sadly aired on the most watched cable news show in America.
That was Special Counsel Jack Smith, who looked like a bedraggled nervous wreck, dripping with anger and highly emotional. This is overkill. This is political germ warfare.
Trump said nothing and did nothing to trigger any criminal charge on January 6th. Any.
Sean, this indictment is the legal equivalent of the French guillotine, the reign of terror. This is a mob mentality to take out Donald Trump.
First point, they said the defendant impaired the federal government from functioning. Isn't that literally the Republican Party platform?
Who resist DOJ on any level, on any policy matter whatsoever. Free speech will not survive if this indictment succeeds.
A political war crime.
And now they're indicting a former president of the United States to protect Biden and the entire D.C. establishment from scrutiny.
It's an atrocity. Enough is enough.
Yeah, the Matrix is a strange place, huh?
I hate this place. This zoo.
But providing a rare and much needed dose of sanity was Rachel Maddow, who decided to discuss not only the indictment, but what it could mean historically. In the way we look back at, say, Watergate, will this trial be looked at in the same vein? Or will people be hung up on that three-letter word that, when you think about the fabric of this country and how it allegedly stands for freedom, justice, and liberty for all, how?
Win, lose, or draw in this election, will you commit here today for a peaceful transferal of power after the election? And there has been rioting in Louisville, there's been rioting in many cities across this country, red and your so-called red and blue states. Will you commit to making sure that there is a peaceful transferal of power after the election?
Well, we're going to have to see what happens. You know that I've been complaining very strongly about the ballots, and the ballots are a disaster.
I understand that, but people are rioting. Do you commit to making sure that there's a peaceful transferal of power?
We want to get rid of the ballots, and you'll have a we'll have a very peaceful. There won't be a transfer, frankly. There'll be a continuation. The ballots are out of control. You know it. And you know who knows it better than anybody else? The Democrats know it better than anybody else. Go ahead.
How did America get to the point where such a person could be elected to the presidency of the United States?
And furthermore, how could it be possible that this same quad-dieted former president be leading the polls as the GOP frontrunner, with the campaign slogan basically being, "Elect me so I don't go to jail"?
Professor Tully, what's the charge everybody keeps talking about on the left, that if Trump is convicted of, it disqualifies him from ever holding public office ever again? Is that part of this?
Well, you know, the Democrats have been playing with this for years, with the 14th Amendment and the claims of disqualification. It's sort of a story you tell your kids at night if you're a Democratic household, so they sleep restfully. But I got to tell you, I'm highly skeptical. I don't think that a conviction would prevent Donald Trump from running. And by the way, if he's elected, it wouldn't prevent him from pardoning himself. It wouldn't prevent other Republicans elected from pardoning him.
Meanwhile, across the country, there are disenfranchised people unable to vote because of, say, a minor weed offense. So when we say there are two Americas, this is what we mean.
Hey, Midas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.